Yeah, so I've started my recording. Let's move on. Dr. Viva, I'm not able to see the chat, so if there are any questions, please let me know.
Yeah, sure. I'll definitely let you know.
Yeah. So for oropharynx, again, just a brief recapitulation of what we learned in our last class. So for oropharynx, again, uh, the lateral beam, the posterior and the inferior border would be again whatever we have talked about yesterday. It doesn't change. So again, the posterior border would be at the posterior border of the spinous process, and if you're doing a planning from the in the uh, in the clinical setting where you're just planning based on the anatomical landmark of the patient, you have to put the posterior border at the mastoid process, a straight line drawn straight down from the mastoid process. The superior border, again, in case of oropharynx, I have been through various literature. There are not many literature talking about the field borders, as we all know. And the classical teaching would be, again, if you want to cover the entirety of the level 2 nodes, uh, you need to put the superior border somewhere at the level of C1. uh, so you need to put the superior border somewhere at the level of C1 to come to cover the entire jugular chain, so anterior border, again, some book says it's 2 centimeter anterior to the tumor. You wouldn't know the anterior, it wouldn't know the anterior extent of the tumor when you're planning clinically. So you can put the anterior border through the middle third of the tongue. So your anterior border would can go anywhere through the middle third of the tongue. And again, your inferior border would be depending on what you want to how do you want to treat the patient. You want to use just lateral beams, you can pull your inferior border down to the to the level where neck meets shoulder, or you can put it somewhere at the lower border of you can put it somewhere at the lower border of cricoid, or if you want to use a low anterior neck field. There are options to treat uh, uh, like your field border would be mostly bilateral in case of oropharynx, except for tonsillar fossa. In case of tonsillar fossa, you may want to treat unilaterally. If you want to treat unilaterally, you have options of using a wedge pair technique. And um, I would rather not go into the details of that because I don't have the pen to draw and talk about it. But it would be somewhat similar to what how we plan for parotid and how we plan for parotid. Another option to treat a unilateral another option to treat a unilateral uh, treat unilaterally for in case of tonsil is to use 2:1 weighing opposing lateral field. So you will be using bilateral so you will be using bilateral opposing opposing bilateral fields, but your with the weightage of would be in the ratio of 2:1. So on the affected side, your weightage would be more, and you would be using a 15-degree wedge, and on the opposite side, you would be uh, you will not be using any wedge, and your weightage will be more on the affected side. That way you can pull the isodose curve towards the affected side in spite of using a uh, bilateral field. And that is how essentially your borders would be. So just repeating the borders before we move on from oropharynx. So for posterior one third of the tongue, for tonsillar fossa, for soft palate, your borders would essentially, the superior border be at the level of the C1, or at at the superior border of the hard palate, and that way you would be covering the entirety of oropharynx, and as well as the superior extent of the level 2 nodes. um, your anterior border would run through the middle of the tongue. So anywhere at the middle one third of the tongue, you can put your anterior border based on the anterior extent of the disease that you can very well assess in a CT scan. Your posterior border will again be the same, like other head and neck cases, mastoid, and then off chord to tragus, or posterior border of the spinous process, and then off chord to the middle of the vertebra or anterior border of the mid vertebral level. Uh, that is what oropharynx is. I would be um, moving on to oral cavity. So if there are any doubts as far as oropharynx is concerned, please do ask.
Dr. Ridley, can I add something in this?
Yeah, please do. Please do.
Yeah. So in oropharynx, most of the times the patient would be sitting. So whatever you said is more of the X-ray based what do you say, the portals,
Yeah.
the landmarks that are given. So if the patient is sitting and if they ask you for the surface marking, okay, so in that case it's a little different. So if the surface marking is asked, superiorly your border is the line along the ala of the nose to the tragus. This corresponds to, like Dr. Reddy just mentioned it. This is the region which is just beyond the hard palate. Inferiorly is just below the clavicle. This is to cover the neck nodes adequately. Anteriorly, in the skin marking, you have to take the border at the angle of the mouth, or you palpate the lesion or the lymph nodes and give adequate margin. Posteriorly, it's at the tip of the mastoid process, which corresponds to the tip of the spinous process of C1. So this is what your surface marking would be. Most of the times you do get a base of tongue case. So the examiner might just ask you for the skin markings.
So
Um,
would it be how your superior border look like? Would
yeah,
this how your superior border would look like, from the ala of the nose and to the tragus,
yeah,
and
yeah.
then the anterior
Just a
border would
little
be?
below. Just a little below. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Now you placed it perfectly. Yeah.
Yeah, and
So
then
it
another.
should be the inferiorly just below the clavicle.
So the anterior border would go through the angle of the mouth, so somewhere again
Anteriorly. Okay. Anteriorly, it's at the angle of the mouth. Yeah.
angle of the mouth.
Yeah.
As far as posterior and inferior is concerned, the concept is the same, if I'm not wrong.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Hmm. So this is how it will go for the skin marking. Okay.
I have a question.
And
Can I
yes,
ask?
please do.
Yeah, this is Dr. Durga. Sometimes we also use bilateral with a local land or with a local anterior neck field. So
Pardon,
can you
please come
just
again. Bilateral with a
land a lower anterior field?
lower anterior field. Yeah.
Yeah, so can you just throw a light or just go through where we can we place the isocenter because when you're using bilateral with a land, where will you place the isocenter? Because we use mostly the monoisocentric technique.
yeah, so basically, if you prior to that, I just wanted to point out
Doc-
the
Dr. Vivek, can I
yeah.
just mute you? You can unmute. A lot of people they have their mic open. May I just mute everyone? Just 1 second. Dr. Vivek, are you there? Can you please come again? Dr. Vivek?
Can you please repeat the superior border? That's a question in the chat.
Just hold on one second. There's some issue with my connectivity. I'm not able to
I've
hear.
got
Yeah,
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 I've
Dr.
got issue
Vivek.
with my connectivity today.
Yeah, same here with
I'm
me.
sorry, I got disconnected. Yeah. So okay. So first point, the superior border someone had asked. So superior border is line along the ala of the nose to the tragus.
Yeah. Hello. Hello.
Could you please repeat the inferior border?
Hello, Dr. Vivek. Okay, there's some connectivity issue. So, can you please ask your questions again? I got disconnected. I couldn't hear. Are you asking me to repeat the inferior border?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, the inferior border would be again the same thing. If you can treat you can use a low anterior neck field, or the same, or otherwise you can put the inferior border at the lower border, at where neck mid shoulder. So if you're using only with lateral, if you're treating only with the lateral field, you can pull your inferior border to the part where the neck mid shoulder, because again in oropharynx you need to treat the level 4 nodes. So to treat the level 4 nodes, you need to bring the inferior border to the level where neck mid shoulder. Otherwise, if you're using a low anterior neck using a low anterior neck field, you can use a low anterior neck border. In that case, the lower border of the lateral feed would be again somewhere at the lower border of the cricoid. You can keep it at vocal cord. You can keep it anywhere you want. Just you have to keep in mind that there are no gross nodes, because if there are any gross nodes, again you have to put it's better not to keep any junction near the gross node, because you might first thing is that you might miss you might have a cold spot over the gross node, which is not desirable. And the second thing is that if you are having a gross node, you won't be able to treat the gross node with an low anterior neck field. So you have to cover and the gross node in the lateral portal itself. So the low inferior border is the same; it doesn't change. So doesn't the posterior border.
Yeah.
Right, Dr. Viva, you were saying something about
Yeah. First, there's a question by Dr. Lakshmi. Is there anything like tragus to midway between ala to angle of mouth as the superior border? No, it's basically the ala of the nose to the tragus that you take into account the superior border. Um, yeah. So now coming to the portals, like Dr. Riddhi just said, the superior border, the anterior and the posterior. So there's just a difference in the posterior border. For N0, it should cover up to the mastoid tip, and for an advanced N plus or a T3 T4 disease, you should cover the spinous process to include the level 5. And the 3 field technique, it's used for clinically involved lower lymph nodes or short neck patient, and it has to be matched with the lower borders of the lateral portals that are there. So again, you've got a phase 1 and a phase 2. In the phase 2, you've got the reduced field margins that are taken into account. The off chord is basically the posterior border is the junction of the anterior 2/3 and the posterior 1/3 of the vertebral body. Dr. Riddhi, can you just draw and show it, the posterior border? So basically the junction of anterior 2/3 and the posterior 1/3 of the vertebral body. Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
So for the three field technique, you've got two isocenters, and otherwise you're using a single isocenter. So Dr. Durva, regarding the isocenter placement. Am I audible?
You're audible now. Please go on.
Okay. Yeah, so this is what it is. Basically, the advantages of the bilateral technique, again, it's easy to set up, less planning and treatment time, and avoids junction. However, the disadvantage is that there's an underdosing at the supraclavicular region in the tune of around 20 to 30%, and also dose inhomogeneity due to the irregular contours at that site. For the three field technique, you use a bilateral field for the primary tumor and the upper neck, and a single anterior field for the lower neck. This can be done by the single isocentric method, or by using two isocentric techniques. The advantage of the three field technique, you get a better dose distribution, and described as an ideal technique. However, it's cumbersome, it requires a lot of time, and there is problem with the junction. Okay, so someone has asked about the posterior border for your N0. For N0, the posteriorly it should cover the mastoid tip. For an N plus disease, it should cover the spinous process. Basically, you go up to the spinous process because you're involving the level 5 lymph nodes as well.
So it clinically it would be around 1 to 2 centimeter behind the mastoid process, because that's like in nasopharynx, mastoid process is again somewhere around here. That would that let you cover the posterior extent of level 2 and level 4, so you have to keep it somewhere around here, if tip of mastoid process, if you want to treat just up to level 4, not up to level 5. If you want to treat the level 5, go 1 to 2 centimeter behind the mastoid process.
Yeah. So Dr. Ishantini has asked Dr. Riddhi, any scenario for raising the superior border to base of skull in oropharynx?
The base of skull. We're not. Are we
Yeah.
raising? We are not raising it to the base of skull. We would a base of skull we raise in case of hypopharynx, because the involvement of retropharyngeal lymph nodes. Here we are not raising it to the base of skull. We are just raising it to the upper body. You're raising it to a level so that we are adequately covering the entirety of oropharynx and the uppermost extent of the level 2 nodes.
Agreed. True.
If your retropharyngeal nodes are again involved, for example, your posterior pharyngeal wall is involved, and that it's likely that it would have metastasis to the retropharyngeal node, then you might increase it to a level of the zygoma, and your zygoma would roughly correspond to the base of skull. That's what you do when hypopharynx. Do you agree, Dr. Vivay, or?
Yeah, Dr. Mansi has actually pointed out a very valid point. You need to cover the retrostyloid in case of high level 2 involvement. So that is one phase where you actually go up to the base of skull.
Base of skull. That is true, but that is as far as contouring is concerned. But I don't know, as far as field borders are concerned, I don't know if you need to cover up to retrostyloid. As far as contouring was concerned, it was seen that whenever level 2 nodes are involved, the recurrence is around there, and we are treating only up to level 2. And level 2, when you are contouring, your contouring starts at the lateral process of the C1. We have seen that recurrences occur above the level of where we have irradiated. So that is the level 7B and the retrostyloid nodes. That's why we have started a practice to extend the level 2 nodes up to the base of skull whenever we are drawing. So we just keep on drawing level 2, until we reach the base of skull, and that would roughly correspond to the retrostyloid region. But I'm not sure that we could safely do that with conventional planning, because that would increase the volume to a significant level. We can safely do that with a 3D CRT or an IMRT plan, but I'm not sure. You need to ask the senior colleagues if that is what can be done as far as conventional technique is concerned. I mean, apart from hypopharynx.
Yeah.
Would
Okay,
you
we'll
differ?
move to oral cavity.
Would you differ, Dr. Vivay? I mean, I don't know.
I'm sorry, my God. No, I missed that part. My net got disconnected. I did not hear your last 2 minutes.
Yeah, we move on. I said that it is true that we need to treat the retrostyloid as far as contouring is concerned, but I'm not sure we would do the same in case if we are planning it in a conventional technique, because that would unnecessarily increase the volume to uh, unnecessarily increase the volume and a larger part of your oral cavity and oral
Yeah.
cavity and everything
No,
would be
I agree to your point, but I believe Dr. Mansi compared, like, she has worked in a center with Cobalt. So what
okay.
we'll do is, Dr. Rishantini, we'll just we will note down this doubt. I'll ask my seniors. Dr.
Yeah,
Reddy
yeah,
will
yeah.
do the same. So we'll
I'll
get
ask my
back to you
seniors.
tomorrow. Yeah. We'll move to oral cavity, Dr. Reddy.
Yeah, let's move. Yeah, we move to oral cavity.
Yeah.
So your oral cavity again, it depends on your centralized structures or the lateral structures. So your planning for buccal mucosa would be again different from what you would plan for an oral tongue. So for your oral tongue, you have to use parallel opposed fields again, like in case of oropharynx and hypopharynx and larynx, you'll be using a parallel opposed fields, but again in case of a buccal mucosa you would be using your anterolateral and anterior and lateral wedged pair fields. For oral tongue, your superior border would be in case of oral tongue, the uh, the the setup is done with a tongue bite, so that we can move the hard palate away from the field. So if you can put a tongue bite inside the mouth, so that the hard palate is pushed away from the field, and we can avoid irradiating the hard palate unnecessarily in case of oral tongue. So if you are using if we so in this diagram there is no tongue bite, so the part is a bit close, but as far as an oral tongue is concerned, you can simulate using a tongue bite, and that would push the hard pellet away from the tongue. When that is being done, then we can safely put the upper border at around 1 to 1.5 centimeter above tongue, and the again the anterior border would be in front of the mandible, but we would try to exclude the lower lip if possible. So it would be at the anterior border of the mandible, slightly excluding the lower lip, if possible, to avoid having toxicities at the lip, mucosal toxicities at the lip. Again, the inferior border again depends on. In case of an oral tongue, you can have uh, skip metastasis to the level 4 nodes. So again, you would have to include the level 4 nodes, and that you can do either by using a low anterior neck, or you can use just parallel beams, Latin parallel opposed beams. So if you're using a low anterior neck, you can put your lower borders to the lower border of the cricoid, or at the thyroid notch, and your posterior border again would be at the mid vertebral. You can at the mid vertebral level, or for an off chord, or it would be at the level of the mastoid to treat at the tip of the mastoid to treat uh, the posterior part of the of level 2, 3, 4. So that is what your field would be. So the superior border again would be after using uh, a tongue bite, it would be 1 to 2 centimeter above the tongue. Anterior border would be in front of the mandible, just excluding the lower lip. And then again, your inferior border and posterior border would again depend on the nodal status and your uh, nodal status and how you choose to treat the patient as far as number of beams are concerned. Is it right, Dr. Bivay? Would you differ?
Yeah. No. That's exactly the same. Yeah.
Yeah. Why are we? The what is the idea behind trying to save the hard palate? Can anyone answer? Apart from mucosal toxicity,
Minor salivary glands.
right? So you would because we would be treating bilateral parotids whenever you were planning a lateral opposed beam. There is no way of saving the parotids. And if you can at least save the minor salivary glands in the hard palate, you can take care of the xerostomia of the patient to some extent, although it is not possible in conventional planning. Again, I would ask this question. So, would you like to help me and tell me what the margins for a buccal mucosa would be? Can someone tell me the borders of buccal mucosa?
Superiorly, zygoma.
So, first of all, which portal are you talking about?
Right lateral face.
You're talking about the lateral portal, okay? For the lateral portal, why would you put your? So just before we move on, so for an N0 buccal mucosa, and what all levels would you like to treat?
Level 1B and 2.
1A, 1B, you'll be treating definitely,
Yeah.
and that would again would be coming in the field. But other than that,
Two only.
won't you treat the level 3?
Sorry, 2 and 3, not beyond that.
Yeah, so we'll be treating up to level 3. There's no need to treat level 4 unless and until there is a positive node in the neck. So you can put your lower border accordingly. If you're treating if you're treating an N0 neck, if you're not treating an N0 neck, then again your lower border would change. So continue, please. For the lateral portal, what would your superior border be?
Superior would be hard palate.
No, it won't be hard palate. Just imagine inside. Just imagine on your face. Does your buccal mucosa stop?
Zygoma.
Right. Your buccal mucosa doesn't stop at the hard palate, so you need to treat the entirety of the buccal mucosa. Whenever you're drawing in a contouring whenever you're contouring for buccal mucosa, your contouring starts just after your orbit ends. Just after your inferior orbital ridge ends, you draw 1 or 2 slice below that. So your superior border would be at the level of zygoma. Even for an anterior portal, your superior border would be at the level of zygoma, right?
Zygoma, yeah. So posterior border would be in an N0 case mastoid.
Right.
Anteriorly will flash.
Okay.
Or at the angle of the commissure, oral commissure.
No. You cannot put it at the angle of the oral commissure. You need to treat. You need to.
Okay.
Your anterior
So then
border.
flash. And inferiorly in N0 case, we'll be treating a level 1A, 1B and 2 and 2. So thyroid notch.
Thyroid notch. What is the inferior border of? What is inferior?
Sorry, cricoid cut.
Yeah, so you don't need to go up to the part where neck mid shoulder. So you can put it somewhere at the lower, with some margin, we can put it somewhere on the lower border of cricoid cartilage. Am I right, Dr. Weaver?
Yeah, exactly. That is where you put it.
Yeah. So so you're not left with anything. So so you have talked about the superior should be at the level of zygoma, posterior let's not repeat again. Anterior we would be flushing. Anterior, you're right, you would be flushing in the air. Inferior,
posterior we can shrink a bit, no, because we are N0.
in an N0 we can in the posterior
Yeah,
we can shrink a bit, right?
Yeah. So N0 will be the mastoid.
N0 will be
Yes.
mastoid. Again, whenever for the first year residents, I don't know if there are first year residents or second year residents, early second year residents. Again, whenever we are talking about tip of mastoid, that is for phase 1. For phase 2, again after 44 gray, you would do an off cord. Okay, so don't. So yeah. So again, so when we're talking about tip of mastoid, that's just for phase 1. Okay. Okay. Now let's move on to the anterior portal. What would your medial border be?
Midline.
Your medial border be midline. Inferior border would be same as your lateral portal.
Yeah. And again, superior zygoma and laterally flash.
Laterally, you would be flushing again, right? So this again is it is what your anterior portal would look like, and this is how your lateral portal would look like. Dr. Bivai, would you add anything?
No, that's it.
That's it. And
Yeah.
so let's move on to the maxillary sinus. Should we move to the maxillary sinus? So again, in maxillary sinus, it's
prior to that, just if you could just tell them about the other oral cavity sites as well, like not to get confused. It's the same for the other sites, which include the floor of mouth, the retromolar triangle, and the lower alveolar region as well.
Yeah. So for your floor of mouth, so for your retromolar trigon, again, it would be same as how you would treat your buccal mucosa. It wouldn't vary much as far as when you're treating when you are treating your retromolar trigon. However, if you can instead of treating your entire lip, you may in some cases you may limit your anterior border by pulling it
for
by pulling.
RMT.
Yeah, for RMT.
Angle of mouth, anterior border.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. So if you're when you're treating your RMT, it would be essentially same. The portal arrangement would be same as buccal mucosa, but you don't need to treat that much of your lip, and so there is no need to flush your skin, flush on the lips. So you can pull your anterior border a little bit backwards to save your lips, but other things, the superior border and the posterior border, inferior border would again remain the same. Dr. Bivai?
Agreed.
Yeah.
Someone has asked about the use of wedge. Dr. Abhishek has asked.
Yeah, you have to use wedges. You do have to use wedges.
Yeah.
Paired
So
wedges.
basically.
Yeah, Dr. Bivai.
Yeah, so you're using paired wedges, especially for your small tumor. You use a pair wedge. It's a 45-degree wedge that is commonly used in your oral cavities. For the lower alveolus, you're using a lateral field and an oblique anterior field. So that is where you use your wedge. So in the oral cavity, all around you use a 45-degree wedge. But if you're using an oblique wedge, that will with a lateral field wedge. In that case, your oblique wedge is 45 degree, and it will be a 30-degree wedge for the lateral fields that you're using. So whenever if you've got a isodose curve to be drawn, then in your oral cavity especially, you can safely use a 45-degree wedge.
Yeah.
Agreed, Dr. Riddhi?
Agreed. Even for a maxilla, you need to use a 45-degree wedge. And
Yeah.
yeah, so for whenever you so this is again it goes back to that concept of wedge angle versus the relationship between wedge angle and hinge angle. What is
Hinge
the
angle, yeah.
yeah, so what so in when you're using an anterior and a lateral field, your central axis would make of these two fields would be making a 90-degree. So how what is the different what is the formula for wedge angle and hinge angle? Yeah.
Yeah.
Hinge angle is wedge angle by 2.
No, 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 no,
No, no,
Correct.
no.
Hinge
no.
angle is wedge angle minus 90 by 2. No, 5 by
9.
No, no, no.
9.
You're close though. You remember the
Wedge
90 and
angle.
remember the by 2, but you're confusing
Yeah.
again.
Wedge
So
angle.
wedge
Varsha is
angle is
putting the
90
answer.
minus
90
90
minus
minus
hinge
wedge
angle.
angle by 2.
Wedge angle
Yes.
is 90 minus hinge angle by 2. The hinge angle by 2, like it's not 90 minus hinge angle whole by 2. It's just hinge angle by 2. So 90 minus hinge angle by 2. So so hinge angle is 90. You divide it by 2, it becomes 45. 90 minus 45 is again 45. So whenever you using an anterior and the lateral field, you would rather use a 45-degree wedge angle. For your wedge angle for your larynx would be like I talked about yesterday. What would be an appropriate wedge angle for your larynx? Glottis?
Hinge angle and wedge angle.
What? Want me
So
to
30
repeat?
degrees. 30 degrees.
Yeah, you'd be using a 30-degree. You would be using a 30-degree wedges for 30-degree wedges for treating larynx. But again, in some glottic tumors, you want to pull the isodose curve anteriorly.
Then we
When
will use 15 degree.
15 degree, yeah, you can use a 15
Very
degree.
good.
But the
Yeah.
classical teaching is 30 degree.
30. Yeah.
For the buccal mucosa, sir?
Buccal mucosa, Dr. Bivai said 45 degree, right? What are you asking the wedge angle? Can you please come again with
Yes,
the
sir.
question?
Yes, sir. Wedge angle and hinge angle.
Yeah, so wedge angle is 90 minus hinge angle by 2.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Just pardon me, I'm going to mute all. Please,
Yeah.
disturbances. Okay, anyway, going to the so yeah, moving on to maxilla. So again, in maxilla, it's the whole idea is same. You're using an anterior and the lateral portal, and in this class we're just talking about the lateral borders, but you need to practice the diagram for how you would plan how you would plan a maxilla with like in a cross section, how you would plan the maxilla and draw the isodose curves by using 45-degree wedge angle with a anterior and lateral field. So there is a nice diagram based on that. I'm sorry, I'm not able to connect my iPad, so I'm not able to show.
Dr. Riddhi, we'll do a isodose class separately. I think we'll cover all the sites together, because if you do it cumulatively, it'll actually make more sense. Like
Yes,
cover
right.
the head and neck, the cervix, and everything. So
Right. So I will not be talking about that part. So let's just talk about strictly about the portals. So as far as portals are concerned, at the maxillary sinus, again you'd be using a lateral. You'd be using a lateral field, and you'd be using an anterior field. So for the lateral field, your superior borders should go around the floor of the anterior cranial fossa. Right. It should be 2 centimeter above the cribriform plate. 1 second. So anyway, you're talking about the clinical the X-ray planning. So your superior border, just give me 1 second. So your superior border would be along the floor of the anterior cranial fossa. So your superior border should cover the entirety of the maxillary sinus. So it should go with the floor of the of the anterior cranial fossa, it would roughly correspond to above the level of zygoma. So you can draw a straight line from the so superior border as far as clinical planning is concerned. You can draw a straight line from the superior orbital ridge to the tragus. That would roughly again correspond to your the to the floor of the anterior cranial fossa. So that would be the superior border of your lateral field, right? Any doubt?
Okay, sir. Like,
Then now coming to your anterior field. So your anterior field would be behind the lateral canthus of the eye, and it would be behind the lateral. Just give me 1 second. So it will be behind the lateral canthus of the eye. So it should be somewhere around here, and it should it should be parallel to the slope of the face. So if the face is slightly slanting, you may make it parallel to the slope of the face. So I'm just drawing a straight line here. It should go through the lateral canthus, and it should be parallel to the slope of the face. Now, one thing to point here is that whenever you're making this, whenever you're making this lateral portal, you have to angle it posteriorly. Okay, you have to angle this entire field posteriorly by 5 degrees. Why? Because you are safely saving the lens. Your lenses of the ipsilateral eye is somewhere around here, right? So you're safely saving the lens of this side. But we know that it's a divergent field. So it will, whenever it exits from the other side, if it would give a good amount of dose to the lens of the opposite eye. So that's why you would be angling it posteriorly by 5 degree, and that would safely save your opposite eye. But as far as border is concerned, the border is the same. It should be behind the lateral canthus of the eye, right? Now coming to the inferior border. So your inferior border should be 1 centimeter below the floor of the your inferior border would be 1 centimeter below the floor of the sinus. So your inferior border would roughly correspond to the lateral commissure of the lip. So your inferior border would again correspond to the lateral commissure of the lip, right? Any doubts so far? Now coming to your posterior border. So your posterior border would should be it may be at the tip of the mastoid process, or it should be it would be at the level of the mastoid process. Now what you need to take care of as when you are treating this patient in a X-ray based plan is that whenever you're putting the posterior border, your posterior border should be you should be covering the pterygoid plates. Okay, so your pterygoid plates would be somewhere around here, and your mastoid process is again here. So if you're putting it at the level of the mastoid process, it would safely cover the pterygoid plates. So the posterior wall of the maxillary sinus, that separates the whole the posterior wall of the maxillary sinus, which separates it from the temporal fossa and the pterygopalatine fossa. So this is where your pterygoid plates would lie, and your posterior border would be behind the pterygoid plates, or you can put it at the level of the mastoid process. Any doubts? So covers the pterygoid plates, or You can also say mastoid process.
So can you repeat?
The whole thing? Whole
Yes.
thing or just the posterior border?
Just the whole.
Yeah. So you can see the maxillary. Can you see the maxillary sinus in this diagram? Your posterior border here in this particular diagram would be 1 centimeter below the maxillary sinus. This is, if I'm not wrong, this is the maxillary sinus, and your posterior border would be below 1 centimeter below the maxillary sinus. Whenever you're looking at the same thing in a clinical planning based on the anatomical landmarks, it would more or less correspond to the commissure of the lip or the angle of the mouth. So it would correspond to that. So inferior border angle of the mouth in an X-ray planning, it should be 1 centimeter below the maxillary sinus. This is the inferior border. Posterior border in a clinical plan, it would be at the level of the mastoid. In an X-ray based plan, it should make sure that it covers it is behind the pterygoid plates. Right now, coming to the superior border. So your superior border would be roughly a line drawn from your superior orbital ridge to the tragus, and that would roughly correspond to the floor of the anterior cranial fossa. So this is the anterior cranial fossa. Your superior border is covering the anterior cranial fossa. Now coming to the anterior border, the anterior border would be it would go your anterior border would be along the lateral edge of the orbit, or as far as your clinical planning is concerned, your anterior border should can correspond to the lateral canthus of the eye. So it would be behind the lateral canthus of the eye, and or for a clinical planning, it might be at the lateral. We can put your border at the lateral edge of the orbit. Sorry. So this is what your maxillary sinus would look like. The portal for your maxillary sinus would look like. Any doubts? Should we move on to the anterior and the field borders of the anterior portal?
Okay, sir.
What if the nodes are involved?
Yeah, we are coming to that. This is just the field borders for your maxillary sinus. Okay, so now coming to the anterior portal. So your anterior portal would be just 1 second. So your anterior portal would depend on how much your orbit is involved. By and large, the superior border would be above the crista galli to encompass the entirety of the ethmoids. So your anterior border should be the superior border should be above the crista galli. Okay. So your superior border would be above the crista galli to encompass the ethmoids. Now coming to your the medial border. Now the medial border would be 1 to 2 centimeter across the midline. So it would not be at the level of the midline. It would be 1 to 2 centimeter across the midline. Why are you why do you want to pull it across the midline? To include the contralateral ethmoids. Right. Now coming to the inferior border. Inferior border again is same as the floor 1 centimeter below the floor of the sinus. Might as well go through your lateral border of the. Might as well go along the lateral border of sorry the angle of the mouth. Okay, so here comes the difficult part. So difficult part is that your rest of it. So this is by and large how your anterior border looks, anterior portal looks like. But then again, you have to save this eye. So your this is what your medial what the medial border is. So medial border is 1 to 2 centimeter across the midline. This is what the inferior border is. Inferior border is at the angle of the mouth. Superior border is superior border is at the above the crista galli to encompass the ethmoids, and now comes the rest of it. So the rest of it depends on how much your orbit is involved. If your orbit is just involved, you
हाँ जी एक अच्छा एक मिनट आ जाओ
Yeah, so your orbit is grossly involved. Your superior border would be a straight line just like this, you know. Your superior border would go through your superior border would go through the superior border of the supraorbital ridge. So your supraorbital ridge would somewhere be around here, and your so this is your orbit. Yes, this would be your supraorbital ridge, and your superior border would include the entirety of the supraorbital, and you would not be saving this eye. You would you would be giving a complete field like that, right? But it's just in case if your orbit is not involved at all, then you would, although you would be including the inferior plate of the orbit, but your border would be around just below the cornea to save the eye. So this is how this is how your anterior border would be looking like. You would be giving a block here by saving by the block. The superior border of the block would be just below the cornea to save the ipsilateral eye. So this whole thing would be a block, and this is how your anterior portal would look like. And lastly, if your at, and your orbit is involved, but it is not completely involved, uh, you might save some part of the orbit by giving a just 1 second. So if your orbit is involved, your superior border would again go through the superior orbital ridge. If your orbits are not involved, you would be including the inferior plate of the orbit, but your border would go through just below the cornea of the eye to save the ipsilateral eye. That is about it. Any doubts? So you have to include the floor of the so if your orbit is not involved, you have to include the floor of the ipsilateral orbit, but your superior border would be below the cornea, and you have to ask the patient to look straight ahead. You ask the patient, you ask the patient to look straight ahead so that there is less damage to the retina. If the patient looks upward, you're even with a field like this, if the patient looks upward during treatment, a considerable amount of the retina would be damaged. So you need to ask the patient to look straight ahead all throughout the treatment, and your superior border would be just below the cornea. And if your orbit is completely involved, then again your superior border becomes 2 centimeter above the cribriform plate, or at the level of the at the crista galli. And I forgot to tell the lateral border. The lateral border would be again flush on the skin for an anterior portal. Right? Dr. Vivay, would you add anything? I'm sorry, I'm facing trouble.
Yeah, so lateral border, just a little bit more on that. Basically, it'll be 1 centimeter beyond the apex of the sinus or falling of the skin, like you said, when the tumor extends into the soft. Could you mute one of the participants? A lot of noise is coming. Yeah. So lateral border, it will be 1 centimeter beyond the apex of the sinus or falling off of the skin when the tumor extends into the soft tissue of the cheek or the infratemporal fossa. So just a bit on that. Dr. Spandana had asked about the lateral border, and there is a confusion between the lateral and the anterior field. So basically, when you're planning your CA maxilla, you've got one anterior and two lateral fields. So that is why you don't in the lateral portal the anterior field is not flashed, because you're doing the coverage comes mainly from your anterior field. So even though you're cutting through the sinus, the lateral fields are taking care of that. So that is the reason in your anterior in the lateral field, the anterior border is placed just behind the outer edge of the canthus, the lateral bony canthus that is there. Yeah, Dr. Riddhi, Dr. Elsa has asked about, can you explain about tilt and the posterior tilt and the inferior tilt and the wedges?
Yeah. So let me try drawing with the mouse. I don't know how successful I would be. So this is, suppose your cross section of the cross section of the face. These are your eyeballs. Pardon me for the bad drawing. I'm using a
No, it's
mouse.
perfect. It's perfect. It's perfect. We can actually make out of it. Yeah.
So these are the lenses of your eyes, right? Now whenever you are using, so whenever you're using a field, even if you are trying to save the lens, so like I said, you are trying to put the anterior border at the lateral canthus of the eye, so you are safely saving the ipsilateral lens, but your beam doesn't travel in a straight line like this. So what your beam would do is that your beam would go and burn the opposite lens. So even if you're saving the ipsilateral lens, your beam would burn the opposite lens. And you're using, if you're using another lateral field, the contralateral your contralateral field would again come and burn this lens, right? So that's why the entire concept of that's why the entire concept of posteriorly angling the beam comes. So what you're supposed to do is, instead of sorry so instead of so your border would be the same, but instead of making the central axis of the beam go in a straight line, you're making the central axis of the beam go slightly posteriorly, and this degree would be around 5 degree. So this is a 5 degree. This is the central axis of the beam. So if central axis of the beam is tilted posteriorly, your edge of the beam would somehow be saving the opposite lens. So this is how your edge of the beam would look like. So it would be saving the opposite lens, right? If you're tilting it posteriorly. If you're not tilting it posteriorly, this edge would go straight like this. Sorry. So this edge would go like this, and even though it is saving this lens, it would be completely burning the opposite lens, right? Am I clear?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
And also the
And
wedge, Dr. If you just
yeah, and so also for the lateral field, mm, yeah, it not just to avoid the opposite eye, even if you're tilting, if you're angling it to 5 to 10 degree, if you're angling it further to 5 or 10 degree, you might also, if you want to save the optic chiasma hypothalamus from the lateral field, that you would again, if this posterior tilt would do that, so if you're tilting it to around 10 degree, you would also be saving the optic chiasma and the hypothalamus. Yeah, so you're talking about the wedges. So again, the wedges you would be using. So I want to ask this question. So what? So if you're using the wedge, this is your maxillary sinus. Consider it to be a cross section of the face. This is the nose, and these are your maxillary sinuses. You have a disease in your maxillary sinus somewhere around here. So this is your disease. So you need to treat the entirety of the maxillary sinus. So what would you use the slanting edge of the so would your slanting edge of the slanting surface of the wedge face the surface, or the slanting surface of the wedge would be facing the gantry? So would I be placing my wedge like this? Would I be placing my wedge like this, or would I be placing it the other way around?
Other way around.
Yes, so always remember the slanting surface of the wedge would be
Facing the gantry.
facing the gantry, right? So now the thing is that your wedges, the central axis of the wedge are making an angle which is 90 degree. So that's why you are using a wedge of 45 degrees. So so what is the wedge angle? Is this angle the wedge angle? Is this what 45 degree is?
No, sir.
So what is the wedge angle?
Sir, that is the angle between the isodose curves. If it had been
Isodose
a
curve
straight and so the isodose curve, if the surface had been flat versus the isodose curve, there is a
Perpendicular drawn to the center of the beam. 50% at 10 centimeter depth. Tilting of the isodose line at 10 centimeter depth. Angle between the and the mid
Between the central axis and the tilt of the isodose curve, the angle which it makes.
Is there
yeah, you all are right. Yeah. Now Dr. Riddhi will show you how exactly the isodose.
So is this my wedge angle? Is this my wedge angle?
No, sir. The other angle.
Yes. So the definition, whenever someone is asking you the definition of wedge angle, you should be very, very careful of not missing even one word from what the definition is there in your book. So the definition of wedge angle is it is the complementary of the angle that the isodose curve makes with the central axis of the beam. So this is the isodose curve. This is your isodose curve, and the complementary of the angle it makes with the central axis of the beam. So this is the central axis of the beam, and this is the angle that your isodose curve is Can you see? Can you see? So this is your angle that your isosceles curve is making with the central axis of the beam. So your wedge angle will be a complementary of this angle. Complementary means 90 minus that angle is a complementary of that angle. So if this angle is 60°, so your this wedge angle would be complementary of that. So 90 minus 60, that is 30°. So your wedge angle here is 30°, right? So I mean, I know that all of you know what wedge angle is, but whenever it comes to defining it in words, you know, it start fumbling and you mess it up. So now that's your like I used to mess it up most of the time. I even do sometime even now, you know. So that is how your wedge would be placed. What your wedges are doing here is that you're decreasing the hotspot here. You're pulling the isosceles curve towards this side. Okay, so if you're not using this wedge, what would happen is that your beam your this part of the skin and this superior part of the maxilla will be there will be a hot spot, and there will be a cold spot somewhere around here. So what you're trying to do by using this um, by using the two complementary using these two wedges, that you're pulling the isosceles curve towards this side. So those who are not from a Cobalt setup, just a brief about how you would actually calculate or draw the isosceles curve is that you whenever you're planning a maxilla, see a maxilla, you would take the contour of the face at one level, and at that particular level you can use a wire to make a contour, to take a contour of the face. You put the contour of the face on a piece of paper, and so you take the contour of the face, you put the contour of the face on a piece of paper, and you draw out the contour of the face. After you have drawn out the contour of the face, now the next thing to do is to use use the wedges. So you would have a separate isosceles curves for the wedges that you're using. You just supposed to use a tracing paper and superimpose the isosceles curve of this particular wedge and this particular. So you take the same. In both the cases, you're using a 45-degree wedge. So you would have a printed isosceles curve of these 45-degree wedge, and you would just be superimposing the isosceles curve of this wedge and this wedge, and wherever your isosceles curves are intersecting. So for example, the 80% isosceles curve here and 80% isosceles curve here is intersecting. So this point, it is intersecting, right? So at that point you would draw you would make a point, and you would write 80 plus 80. So 80 plus 80 is 160. So 160%, no, not percent exactly. So 160 would be your so you would, so that would be your so 80% of half the dose of here, or 80% of half the dose. So that way you would calculate what exactly would be the percentage here. So let's just, for now, let's just call it 160. So it would be 160. You would just point it as 160. Again, your 90% would somewhere intersect with hello.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah. So again, somewhere around somewhere your 90 and your 90% would intersect at some point. So 90 plus 90, again it would be 180. So again, in that way, you are supposed to add all the numbers of the isosceles curve. If your 90 is intersecting with a 50, so your 90, you're making 90 plus 50 is 140. Now what you're supposed to do is you draw a line joining all the 140s, draw a line joining all the 160s, draw a line joining all the 180s, and that would give you an isosceles curve of the, of the resultant isosceles curve of using anterior and a lateral wedged pair field. The same thing applies for even when you're using you're using two field technique for pelvis, for that matter. You know, even this is the same concept even applies there. You just need to superimpose the isodose curves of that particular field with the another field and see where it intersects and how the resultant isodose curve forms. Am I right? So if your isodose curve in a case of maxilla would then look like this. Sorry, not able to draw it properly. Anyway, so is it clear about the usage of wedge? And is it, I mean, is your question answered?
Yeah, I believe, yeah, it must have been.
Yeah, and someone asked me about what your what would be the level when if nodes are involved. So in a maxillary sinus, if it is N0, you're supposed to cover 1B, level 3, level 7A, and level 9. These are the levels that you're supposed to cover in a case of maxillary sinus with N0. So level 1B to 3 you're supposed to cover, and
Please
level
mute other participants. Lot of disturbance. Thank you, sir.
So in maxillary N0 maxillary sinus, you would be treating level 1B to 3, and then you would treat your level 7A, which is your retropharyngeal node. So again, you know that if you have to treat your retropharyngeal nodes, you would have to go up to the level of the zygoma. You're anyway treating, so you would accordingly, if you want to treat your nodes, your superior border and your anterior border would remain the same. If you want to treat your nodes, your low inferior border should be covering. So inferior border, instead of putting it here, it would be covering up to the inferior border of the cricoid cartilage to cover your nodes for a N0 maxillary sinus. If it's a N1 to N3 maxillary sinus, again you would be treating it just like nasopharynx by covering the level 5. So your posterior border would again go behind uh, 1 centimeter behind the mastoid process. Your inferior border would again change accordingly if you are treating your level 5 nodes again. So that's the basic thing, that if you are treating, if you want to treat your nodes for an N0, your inferior border would be should at least cover level 3. And if you're treating a maxillary sinus with nodal involvement, and then your inferior border would again go further down to where neck meets shoulder, unless and until you are using a low anterior neck portal, and your posterior border would again go 1 centimeter behind the mastoid. But whenever your examiner is asking you the field borders for maxilla, they would like to know strictly the field borders of maxilla, not the nodes. So this is how we would draw the field borders of maxilla, instead of drawing in incorporating the uh, incorporating the neck lodal levels. This would this would is what your examiner would like to hear from you. Okay. So coming to parotid, we had a we would be ending with parotid. For a parotid use, again you would be using you would be using you'd be using anterior and posterior oblique fields, anterior and posterior oblique wedge pair fields. Sorry. So you would be treating parotid with anterior and posterior. Just 1 second. So you'd be treating parotid with anterior oblique and posterior oblique wedge sphere field. So this is how roughly what your field arrangement would look like, right? So one anterolateral field and here another posterolateral field. These two fields would be oblique fields and they would be wedged pair, and your resultant isodose curve would be around the parotid. So this is roughly what your field arrangement would look like as far as borders are concerned. Your superior border would be 1 centimeter above the zygoma. So your superior border would be 1 centimeter above the zygoma. Or if a surgery has been done, your superior border should go as far as your surgical scar extends. So your scar should come inside the field. So your superior border would again might go up if you want if to include the scars. Otherwise, it would be at the zygomatic arch. Your anterior border would be at the anterior border of the masseter. So you would ask the patient to clench the teeth, and his masseters would be prominent. Now at the anterior border of the masseter, you would be putting your anterior border. Your posterior border would be again going behind the mastoid. Okay, your posterior border would go behind the mastoid. And your inferior border would be below the angle of mandible or the posterior belly of the digastric muscle. You wouldn't be able to see the digastric muscle here, so it would be below the angle of the mandible. And in some books they have also written the posterior the inferior border to be at the to go further down and put it near the top of the thyroid. And in some books they have mentioned it to put it at the top of the thyroid, but I would like to keep it at 1 centimeter below the angle of the mandible. Don't need to go that much further down to the thyroid notch. So this is what your inferior border would be. I'm just repeating it once again. Superior border, the zygomatic arch. The anterior border would be at the anterior border of the masseter. The posterior border would be behind the mastoid process, and the inferior border would be and the inferior border would be 1 centimeter below the angle of the angle of the mandible. Dr. Vivai, would you agree or do?
No, it's fine. You're absolutely correct.
Yeah. So I think I have covered everything as far as field borders are concerned. Head and neck. Have I missed anything out?
Just a point on this thing in the parotid. If you're using a single field technique, you use electron combination, and otherwise, if you're using an anterior posterior oblique, you use a double wedge technique that is there. So the reason for using a double wedge technique is present. So this is a common question.
Dr. Vivai, can you repeat?
Pardon?
I lost you for a moment. Can you repeat whatever you're talking about, the anterior and the posterior wedge pair field?
So basically the anterior posterior oblique double wedge technique is used. This technique actually helps in providing a good dose homogeneity, and also the contralateral parotid sparing is done. I don't have the access of pen, so if you place your two wedges,
Right.
the isodose,
Yes.
the isodose curves are tilted in such a way that the contralateral parotid does not receive the dose. So if you could just draw it and show like how the two obliques are placed and how the isodose curves are, because in parotid gland that is like an important point that is that is considered.
So I have a drawing. I would try to improve on that. Just see.
And just a few other points. For the major salivary gland, when you're treating the submandibular gland, a single field is enough, which includes the submandibular angle, and it's taken in the single field itself. So your superior border is at the hard palate. The inferior border, just like what Dr. Riddhi said, it's kept the 1 centimeter below your angle of mandible, and the anterior border is anterior to the mentum, and the posterior border is posterior to the mandibular angle. So this is for your the major salivary glands.
Dr. Vivek, is it?
Yeah,
And
perfect.
I know you're not happy with the picture, but this is as far
No,
as
no,
I can
I
get
am.
in my.
No, this is the best actually. Like,
So this is how
this is perfect. Yeah.
this is how it would be. If you're treating it obliquely, so so you would be in fact saving
Sparing.
the
Yeah.
other half of the face. This part would be rather saved, and is as opposed to you're using if you're using uh, a parallel opposed beam.
Yeah. So just remember that you're using an oblique, anterior posterior oblique double wedge technique for your parotid glands. Okay, Dr. Tirtha, Dr. Riddhi, Dr. Tirtha has put in a question. He's asking what is the posterior border if we are including level 2, and how is it different from posterior border of level 5?
Yeah,
The wedge
suppose.
angle. Yeah, sorry. You continue. I'll put in the next question. Yeah.
So I said that the posterior. It's so the level two. See that you just imagine in your face in your face. So your what are the insertions of sternocleidomastoid? Even the name suggests that it starts from the mastoid and it ends at the clavicle, and some of the fibers end at clavicle, some of the some of the fibers end at the sternum. So sternocleidomastoid. So that's how the name has come. So your mastoid is where the sternocleidomastoid starts, and we also know that the level 2 is exactly behind or lateral medial to the sternocleidomastoid, right? So if you want to treat the level 2, your level 2 would be around here. So just imagine if you want to treat the entirety of the level 2, your posterior border should cover the mastoid process. That is how you would be treating. You can ensure that your entire level 2 is treated. However, if you want to treat your level 5, your level posterior border would go 1 to 2 centimeter behind this mastoid. So this particular thing that you are doing is just to treat the posterior part of the level 2. So when you are doing an off chord, it's not just my the reason I'm repeating it is it's because it was my misconception that when you're doing a off chord, you won't be able to just treat the level 5, but you can treat level 2, level 3, level 4 with an off chord. But that's not true. When you're doing an off chord, even your level 2 is missed. Just think of it. If you're doing an off chord, your level 2 is also missed because your level 2 is here. So that's the reason I'm saying that whenever you're treating the entirety of level 2, your posterior border would go through the mastoid. If you want to treat the level 5 also, just go 1 to 2 centimeter behind the mastoid. Dr. Viva, you answering something, so you can.
No, that's it. I've put up the answer for the next question on the group. You're just asking about the wedge in case of the parotid.
Parotid.
Yeah. Okay. Do I just add 2 more things about
Please do,
thyroid
please
and unknown primary?
Yeah, please do.
Yeah. So for thyroid, if you look at the target volumes, if there is microscopic disease that's only at the thyroid bed, then you include the thyroid bed with a 2 to 3 centimeter margin. If there is macroscopic residual with nodes involvement, so then in that case you include both the thyroid bed and level 2 to level 6 nodes bilaterally. And in case of medullary or anaplastic carcinoma, inferiorly you go up to around level 7 nodes that are there. So, so what are the portals for the thyroid bed alone? So for the thyroid bed alone, the superior border, it's at the lower border of the hyoid bone. The inferior border, it's up to the sternal notch. The posterior border, it's at the mid body of the spinal cord. And the anterior border is around 1 to 1.5 centimeter from the soft tissue of the neck. Okay. Dr. Riddhi, if you can just draw it and show if it's possible for you. Do you have, I think you have the anterior field one, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, can you repeat, because I was just reading the chat.
Slide 4, if you could just show.
Okay, just 1 second. I'll copy the. Just give me a second.
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah, tell me. So you,
Slide 4. Yeah, since we're taking it at the anterior level. Yeah. So the superior border, it's at the lower border of the hyoid bone. If
there is no hyoid bone
this is
drawn
for
here.
the thyroid bed only. You can just imagine where suppose if this is your hyoid bone. So the superior border will be at the lower border of your hyoid bone. Inferior border will be up to the sternal notch. The posterior border, it's at the mid body of the spinal cord, and the anterior border, it's 1 to 1.5 centimeter from the soft tissue of the neck.
Dr. Viva, can you repeat? I lost you.
I think what we'll do is we'll just like if the students can just note it down, it'll be a little difficult to actually draw it because this is more of X-ray based.
Yeah.
This thing. Okay, so this was just for the thyroid bed. Did you get the portals? For the thyroid bed, when you're treating with the nodes, the superior border will be at the mastoid. The inferior border is at the suprasternal notch. The lateral border, it must include the supraclavicular fossa. That is, it should cut through the medial 2/3 and the lateral 1/3 of the clavicle. And if you want to include the superior mediastinum, then the inferior border must be at the level of T4. So this is for thyroid bed and the nodes. Did you get it, or do you want me to repeat again?
So please repeat.
Can you repeat, sir?
Yeah. So for thyroid bed and the nodes. Yeah. So for thyroid bed and the nodes, when you're treating, the superior border will be at the mastoid process. The inferior border will be at the suprasternal notch. The lateral border, it should include the supraclavicular fossa. So that is, you cut through the medial 2/3 and the lateral 1/3 of the clavicle. And if you want to include the superior mediastinum, then the inferior border must extend up to T4 level. Okay. T4 is basically your the level where you have your carina. So this is for thyroid bed and the nodes. So again, in thyroid, you've got phase 1 and phase 2. Phase 1 is till 46 gray, and phase 2 is the off chord. You boost the thyroid bed for up to 16 to 20 gray. Okay. Now coming to the last part for the secondaries in the neck with an unknown primary. So here also you got the lateral field and you got an anterior SCF field. The borders are almost the same like what Dr. Riddhi said for the anterior SCF field. For the lateral field, the superior borders that you initially when you were treating, we've discussed it for the unknown primary, the entire nasopharynx and everything was treated. So the superior border, it includes the nasopharynx and your cranial base. Posteriorly, you go up to the C2 vertebral spinous process. Anteriorly, it's the 2/3 of the tongue, or you include half of the mandible. And inferiorly, you go up to the thyroid notch. Okay. Did you get it?
Yeah, I have drawn also in the screen.
Yeah. Okay. So I think all the portals that are related to head and neck, be it any case, right from your oral cavity, the oropharynx, the thyroid, everything has been covered. Just go through the recordings; it will be useful. Dr. Riddhi, we can do one thing. I have a PPT also. I'll share it with you. You can put in some additions from your the drawings that you were supposed to put up, and we'll share it in the group. It'll be useful for them for a quick look through.
Yeah, I'll be sharing the PDF that I have.
Yeah.
I will try to add something into the PDF that I have already have, and you please share your the presentation that you're talking about. I will be
And to the
try to
students,
incorporate.
just one advice: take out printouts of the AP view as well as the lateral view of the head and neck. You can do it from you can get it from your radiology department. That is what we used to do. Yeah, these photographs, and start practicing, because talking theoretically and drawing it in the exam, it makes a big difference if you've not practiced it prior. So at least 3 to 4 times you need to practice it, then only will it make sense. And practice it with putting in your blocks, putting in the shields wherever it is needed, and by the side, like Dr. Riddhi has just put it across, there is one X-ray film and you've got blank space there. Try to write down what all wedges are being used, what portals, what fields, and what all blocks that you're going to do, and also mention the doses in the phase 1 and the phase 2. So this will give you a comprehensive idea how things are to be written in the exam, because exactly this is what the image will be put in your exams. Okay, this is how the X-ray write down the fields and the blocks and the doses and everything. So and yeah, and practice this, and it'll be like you'll be good to go. Any other query?
Sir, what do we call these printouts? Are these X-ray printouts or?
Yeah, these are the X-rays. These are the portals that you've got the portal films, no?
Okay.
Yeah, you can ask. In fact, Dr. Riddhi, you'll be if you can just share these photographs on the group, it'll be
You
like they
can
can
just
take out.
Google this. I have just Googled it last minute. I will definitely share it in the group. I will put some, like whenever I'm sharing the PPT that I'll be sharing with you guys with all the borders in it. I will put some extra pages with these photographs in there, with nothing drawn on it, so that you can take a printout of it and practice on it. I will put some AP and lateral pictures.
Yeah. Okay, so for tomorrow, Dr. Garima has completed her presentation. So we'll have a case-based discussion on sarcoma tomorrow. Okay, Dr. Neelam, are you there in the group? Are you present today? Okay, so if Dodulsa does not have a session tomorrow, we start at 7. If there is a session, we start at 9:15 like today. If 9:15, then we'll just divide it over 2 days. Otherwise, we'll try to finish off as much as we can on the same day itself. Okay, so I'll put it up in the group, and I'll let you know. Yeah, tomorrow there is an ICRO class. It gets over at 7:30, I believe. So we'll start at 7:30, not 7. Okay, immediately after the session, we'll have the conference. Okay, fine, Dr. Riddhi, you'll be there, right?
Yeah, I'll try to be there.
Okay, fine. Thank you, Dr. Riddhi. It was quite comprehensive, and thank you so much for for all the slides, and it really made our lives very much simpler.
Yeah, I'll be making the slides. I was hoping to share my screen, and it somehow the screen sharing option is not there. I can't get over it yet. So anyway, yeah. So I'll be making all the notes of whatever I've done. We'll be sharing a present PDF, incorporating the slides that you share with me, Dr. Vivek.
Yeah, and we'll continue with these portals probably next week also. Dr. Mansi would be taking up the gynecological portals from the cervix, the endometrium, the vagina, and the vulva. And Dr. Manoj Gupta sir took a very extensive class on 2D portals in breast. Just one point that we need to add is the drawings that were there. So just a brief we'll put across the breast planning, And I think there's nothing else that needs to be discussed as far as the 2D portals are there. So next week we'll have on gynecological malignancies and a little bit about breast, and I think you are set to go there. Fine. So we close the session. Good night, everyone. Thank you for staying up till 11 o'clock in the night.
Thank you very
Okay,
much.
we meet
Thank you
tomorrow.
very much, sir.
Yeah, we meet tomorrow for the sarcoma case discussion. Please read and come. We will have a good discussion on it. Thank you, Dr. Riddhi, and
Thank you, Dr.
good night.
Vibha. Yeah, good night.
Yeah.